Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today that means taking a little look at our second competitive game of the season against Luton, where we won 2-0. So we're going to do the winners and losers, and we're going to take a look at who played well in the game and how it went in general. Before I do that, I'm going to caveat, I'm not going to put quite as many graphics and time into this video as I usually do, because I've done a lot of work today. I was on a live stream this morning on the Footy Judge Mo's channel, so go and check that one out because it's uploaded if you haven't already. I got my own video out earlier and also edited tomorrow's episode of the Talking Chelsea podcast, which will be launching at 11 AM. So go and check out all of that stuff. But for now, let's have a little look at the winners and losers of today's game. So, starting off, the lineup was interesting, actually, because it was a 4-2-3-1 rather than the back three that we've been seeing. So I think it's interesting that, given the opportunity, Xabi Alonso is still like, how can I experiment? How can I try out some different players, but also give other players that have been performing well minutes and time and stuff? So Mike Pender's got the starting goal, which wasn't a surprise to absolutely no one because Robert Sanchez was terrible. And we've just had the here we go for Emi Martinez as well, so he will be joining the club. Left back, Pep Chavadia gets his first start at the club. Maxence Lacroix and Josh Achiampong again in the defence, albeit a back two, to a partnership this time rather than part of a back three. Malagusto gets another shot, but this time at right back instead of right wing back. Interesting midfield with Reece James and Valentin Barco getting his first minutes for Chelsea. We're going to get onto him in a little bit as well. Front attacking midfield three, of Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer and Estevao Willian, with Danny Welbeck also getting his first professional start for Chelsea. The subs started coming on the 67th minute. Yoro Hato, Pedro Neto, Romeo Lavia, João Pedro and Jamie Gittins all took to the field. So, just to sum up the game in general, it was a very different game to Fulham, because Fulham were really coming at us a little bit more. This was much more of like what we're going to come up a lot throughout the season. Maybe not quite as much as this, but Luton put 11 men behind the ball. Do you know what I mean? It was the lowest of stinkiest low blocks, and they weren't even pressing. They were looking for opportunities to counter and trying to take advantage of stuff on set pieces. So the first winner really is the fact that we got a clean sheet and didn't concede anything against a team playing a low block. Austin McPhee I thought was really interesting because he got pretty angry sometimes when his set pieces that they've been rehearsing weren't coming off the way he wanted them to and mistakes were being made. So I love that already. So yeah, let's have a little look at the winners and losers from today's game. So winners, I'm going to start with Danny Welbeck. Look, This is what he's here for, man. The thing that Danny Welbeck did today is literally 100% the thing that he's here for. He wasn't a massive presence throughout the game. He wasn't always linking up really well with the other players. It was mostly being driven by Cole Palmer, again, and Estevao Willian in particular. But Danny Welbeck broke the deadlock with a really simple but lovely header that came in from a great cross from Malagusto. And Danny Welbeck is the winner today because in his first professional start for Chelsea, he has already gotten half of what Liam Delap managed to get in 41 appearances last season. So look, this is just what you expect from your backup strikers at the end of the day, isn't it? Danny Welbeck came on. He wasn't running around everywhere and harrying, a little burst of energy here and there, but ultimately Danny Welbeck did today what you would expect him to do, and that is come on and score a goal. Absolutely love to see it. Next up, I want to talk about Cole Palmer as my next winner. Cole Palmer didn't manage to make anything happen, like no assists and no goals today, but he just looks unrecognisable from last season, but starting to be recognisable from the Cole Palmer we saw under Mauricio Pochettino. As much about attitude and swagger as anything. He's just so desperate to make stuff happen. He didn't look quite as good as he did against Fulham, but at the same time, it's a little bit harder when the team is defending and not leaving you with as much space. He is still trying to dribble through players. He is still dropping deep and becoming a playmaker. There was a lot of times where Morgan Rogers and Danny Welbeck were kind of like getting, blocked out of the game essentially. And instead of kind of being in there as well, Cole Palmer was like, I'm going to drop deep. I'm going to try and make things happen. I really think, I don't know if we're ever going to see the Cole Palmer of the Poch season again. Absolutely no idea. But I don't think we're going to see the Cole Palmer from last season again this season. Already, and like I say, even though he didn't make anything happen today, I mean, his SofaScore rating was really high despite not getting any goals or assists, and that's because he was a constant threat throughout the entire game. The caveat, of course, is that it's Luton, but at the same time, we saw it last season with the likes of Lincoln and the likes of Cardiff, like these teams that just set up really deep and low, and they're really difficult to break through. So already Cole Palmer is starting to look like a bit of a low block tonic for us, right? At the end of the day, if we're coming up against a low block, luck. Cole Palmer is potentially the guy that you can get the ball to try and unlock them. So I absolutely love that. Next winner, Maxence Lacroix. Mate, this guy, for me, just looks so comfortable in a Chelsea shirt already. Like, adaptation periods are really, really normal, even when players come from other teams in the Premier League. Like, it's not always just a given that players are just going to come in and hit the ground running. I remember being really impressed at Cesc Fabregas for this in particular, albeit he'd been away at Barcelona. He came back into the Premier League, and from his first game, he was just like, yep, I belong here. I know what's going on. I get a similar vibe in that respect from Maxence Lacroix. He just looks like levels above, and I was sad to see Trevor Chalobah go. Of course I was, but I've already forgotten about Disasi and Benoit Badiashile and Tosin and Chalobah to a lesser extent, because I did like Chalobah. But seeing Maxence Lacroix, he's shouting, he's being aggressive, his recovery pace is absolutely phenomenal. He gets involved in attacks. He did it again today where he found himself on the right and tried to get a cross in. So he's just got a lot to his game, but he's so comfortable as that central centre-back. And even though we were playing as back four, he was still largely playing that kind of central centre-back role, making himself available for, because they were trying to play on transition and stuff. He snuffed out so many chances and opportunities that Luton tried to take advantage of. So for me, Maxence Lacroix, absolutely massive winner. I'm so glad we signed him. Our defence looks like a real defence, doesn't it? And, I thought that against Fulham. I know a couple of people saw him in his first pre-season game and weren't absolutely loving it. But for me, I kind of got that bit of rust getting to know the team. And it just seems like since it was the same with Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer didn't look that on it in pre-season. But as soon as the jeopardy comes in, as soon as the professional games start and these guys are really letting loose, all of a sudden they just look like they belong. And Maxence Lacroix, like I say, he just doesn't look like he's going to need that bedding in period. And, even Danny Welbeck, albeit like a journeyman Premier League striker, got his goal today, didn't necessarily look as comfortable in the team. Maybe it's harder for attackers. Maybe it's because Maxence Lacroix is going to be playing a very similar role to what he was playing at Crystal Palace, albeit the formation and the style is different. But either way, big winner for me, Maxence Lacroix, and ultimately we're the winners of that one because we finally got a top quality defender who's good at defending. Moving on to the next winner, there's a lot of winners today. There's a pattern emerging. Valentin Barco, right? So, not an absolutely phenomenal performance, and it was against Luton, but Valentin Barco did not look out of place at all in this game, right? And, look, the SofaScore ratings are not the be-all or end-all, but he came out on top of Reece James. Do you know what I mean? And got a better rating than any of the subs that came on as well. Got one of the higher ratings across the pitch, to be completely honest. So, look, Valentin Barco is a young lad, and he was dealing with the boos. The boos coming from the Luton fans that is connected to the same reason that Enzo Fernandez was getting booed. The Fulham game, it wasn't Chelsea fans booing Valentin Barco, I don't think. It was largely the Luton fans, maybe a few Chelsea fans who are England fans as well. But obviously he was involved in the Argentina stuff. But even despite that, he managed to shrug it off. His passing was really good. He made himself available. He was covering that left channel quite a lot as well, allowing the likes of Pep Chavadia to kind of bomb on forward and stuff. So it's a really interesting profile. It's kind of different to anything else we've got at the moment. And I say he's a winner today, not because he had an outstanding performance, but for his first performance for a 21-year-old lad, at this kind of level really, because he played a little bit with Brighton as a left back, didn't do that well, went over and obviously played really well in Strasbourg, but he's come into the squad, and I'm not going to lie to you, I think he is the Andre Santos replacement, isn't he, when it comes down to it. I'm not necessarily expecting Barco to break into the first team, but his versatility and his energy, and if he keeps on performing the way he is, he offers you something a little bit different. He'll be good for seeing out games. He'll be good for rotational games and cup games when we're playing lower league opposition and stuff as well. So, look, I think Valentin Barco is here to stay. I know it's going to be crazy towards the end of the transfer window, but I expect Estevao maybe to get a loan. But I think Valentin Barco is going to stay. And like I say, for me, he just didn't look out of place today, right? Amongst a lot of other players who have been here a lot longer than he has. So, relatively impressed with that. Moving on to my final winner of the day, and it was Josh Achiampong. And look, Josh Achiampong, 2 starts, looked great in both of them. For me, he was really, really good defensively today. And also, I like the fact that when Gusto went off, he kind of moved over to that right-back role, and instantly we started seeing that thing that we love to see from Josh Achiampong, those bursting runs. It's such an individual skill that he has to be able to just drive through the pitch. Phenomenal rating, 7.4. So technically, as far as SofaScore goes, he performed better than Maxence Lacroix today. I think he's going to fight for minutes, do you know what I mean? And I think already, because Wesley Fofana was banned for the Fulham game, so there was no chance of him getting on the pitch. But I think that Josh Achiampong is already making a massive shout to be the guy that gets in front of Wesley Fofana. So that starting position, because at the moment our back three, as far as we can see, is going to be Maxence Lacroix, Levi Colwill, and one of probably Wesley. You know, it felt like it was leaning towards Wesley Fofana, but Josh Achiampong in these first two games is really putting, you know, it'll be interesting to see who starts in the Brighton game. And you would have to think, I know he would have played a lot of games, but I think Maxence Lacroix is going to start. Levi Colwill will get the start there. So it'd be really interesting to see if Josh Achiampong is rewarded for two good performances or whether he's going to get a rest in Wesley Fofana. So maybe it's not a tell-all kind of thing. But I genuinely think that Josh Achiampong is really starting to kind of put what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's just hard when you can't do cuts. But he's starting to throw his name into the hat for that starting centre-back position in the squad, right? And I really, really hope he gets it. You know, at the end of the day, I just want the best player to play. But, you know, if I got to choose who was the best player, I would hope it was Josh Achiampong because he's an academy boy. He's still young. He's got so much in front of him. And I'm really, you just know at some point that bursting run is going to turn into a goal or an assist. It's going to, win you a game or something. It's going to be a generational moment. We're all going to love it. So, lots of winners today. I'm not going to actually pick out any losers from the team because, look, you know, just by looking at the SofaScore rating, you could argue Morgan Rogers, but Morgan Rogers still looked good in moments, but he just, you know, didn't imprint himself as well, you know, as well on the game yet. And kind of the opposite to what I was saying to the likes of Maxence Lacroix, Morgan Rogers looks like he's going to take a little bit of time to bed into the team. And that's fine because that's kind of expected and that's normal. But at the end of the day, he still performed well. Still was a couple of nearly moments from Morgan Rogers. Not enough for me to be like, it's not good enough. Do you know what I mean? Because Cole Palmer didn't make anything happen today either. So I'm not going to call him a loser. And I don't think we had any losers today. I think it was either average or good for the most part today. And it was against Luton. So that's kind of what you expect. The one loser, I will say, and it's a bit of a weird one this, it's the new rules, right? Because the new rule that we saw today was if you take too long, if you're substituted, in this case it was Danny Welbeck was substituted for João Pedro on the 73rd minute, if you take too long to come off the pitch, the substitution player is not allowed to come on for at least a minute. Absolutely wild. So we were down to 10 men for a minute, and I'm pretty sure we were still 1-0 up at that time as well. So, don't like that. That seems like a silly, silly rule, if you ask me, because we can add time on, right? We're very, very capable of adding time on. If Danny Welbeck takes 26 seconds because he wants to revel in the fact that this is his first Chelsea performance at home in front of the fans, he scored a goal, and we punish him. We don't punish him, we punish João Pedro because he took 26 seconds to come off the pitch. So there's this new rule saying, I think it's like 20 seconds plus, I'm not sure, but I'm not even really sure because when Luton made two subs, they took like 20 seconds plus and they didn't have to play with 9 men, do you know what I mean? So, very strange one there, didn't love that, but you know, it's just one of those that we've just got to learn quickly. If you're getting subbed, why even get off? You know, it's unfortunate. I think it's a bit of a silly rule. I get time saving. We want to see more football. Yes, that's absolutely fine. But this seems like a really finite detail where I don't really think anyone wins. So I think the rules lose out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up with a couple of shout-outs, right? Instead of just going straight into the winners and losers, I'm going to talk about a couple of shout-outs and, you know, essentially like an honourable mention that didn't deserve a winner or a loser. First one I want to talk about, Mike Penders. Mike Penders got a clean sheet in his first 90 minutes as a Chelsea player in a competitive game. So caveat, it was Luton. He wasn't tested a huge amount because we had the majority of the ball. Luton were not controlling the game at any point, but he did have to make some saves. There were a couple of very slightly worrying moments where he made 2 saves in quite a short space of time, but he ended up on the floor after both of them, and it was like, if it falls to the wrong guy in that situation, that's where you're getting caught out. So it wasn't a bad or a good, phenomenal performance from Mike Penders. It was just kind of what you would expect when we have the majority of the ball, and it's going to kind of be like that. Like, Mike Penders isn't going to really get tested to see if he's worth, you know, is he going to battle with Emi Martinez now, and is it Robert Sanchez that's going to go, or is it Penders that's going to go out on loan and get game time somewhere else? You know, we didn't really see, he wasn't tested enough for that. What you did see that was really promising stylistically, that I imagine Emi Martinez is probably quite good at as well, is being available as a passing option to your centre-backs when things like, you know, Maxence Lacroix has the ball, is being pressed, he can comfortably turn around and roll it back to the keeper. That happens so many times, and that doesn't happen that often with Robert Sanchez unless they're in desperate positions, because everybody knows that Robert Sanchez doesn't like the ball at his feet. He's like, get the ball away from me. So the big thing that I saw today, albeit clean sheet, wicked, made a couple of saves, couple of secure claims and stuff when he was called upon. The big thing for me today was the style of play. It really, really suits our team because our centre-backs are all good passers, and in a difficult moment, or when you want to stretch the, you know, kind of stretch the play out a little bit and, you know, bring things towards you and change the style of the game, you can get the ball back to Mike Penders comfortably, and you know that he's probably going to be able to pass it out okay. So, not, like I say, not a winner or a loser for me. I just wanted to talk about Mike Penders a little bit in there. Another shout out, Estevao Willian. I think he had a good game, evidently, and it was just a shame that, you know, that if that shot had been on target, it had been a goal. But because it was just pulling wide, it got the deflection. I think it counted as an own goal. But either way, Estevao Willian did look good today. And that was really interesting to see a formation with Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer and Estevao Willian in it. And that is another reason why I maybe think Morgan Rogers didn't play so well today, because it's kind of unfamiliar, right? He had a little bit less space to operate into what he normally would, because normally him and Palmer have kind of got that attacking third either side of it to themselves. But in this case, it was Cole Palmer was kind of everywhere. Morgan Rogers kind of had to carve out his own situation a little bit. So maybe that was one of the reasons why he didn't play as well, because he didn't have as much space as he normally would, and Estevao likes to push into those inside spaces as well. But I thought Estevao looked really good today, and in particular I want to mention the link-up play with Cole Palmer. Some of those little no-look back heels to send Palmer, mate, absolutely love that stuff, man. We saw a little bit of it last season with Estevao and Cole Palmer as well. That's such a promising thing that we need to try and figure out how to make use of. And this is the challenge for Xabi Alonso now, right? Because the three at the back formation with Cole Palmer, Morgan Rogers and João Pedro just looks mint, doesn't it? It looks phenomenal. But you've got Estevao Willian, who looks like a generational talent, who already has an almost telepathic kind of link-up nature with Cole Palmer that you can definitely make use of, especially in these low-block games against teams with a bit less quality to kind of try and surprise them. So, really interesting one there, but good performance from Estevao Willian as well. Last one isn't a Chelsea player, and the only reason I'm putting him in is because he was once a Chelsea player. It's actually Casey Palmer, the other Palmer, Luton's Palmer, right? The Championship Palmer. We've got the real deal and they've got Casey Palmer. Casey Palmer was a Chelsea academy player years ago, years ago. And didn't obviously manage to, no senior appearances for the first team. But I remember him on the old FIFAs when I was a kid and stuff. And it's like, oh, maybe this guy becomes really good. He looked good today. Do you know what I mean? He looked a cut above the, you know, the rest of the players in his team. And he was kind of always looking a bit dangerous. Couple of really good shots. He's a really good player. And it is a shame that he didn't manage to not just get into the Chelsea team, but he kind of cement himself as a Premier League player. But shout out to him because he's a ex-Chelsea boy who managed to find his way into a team. He looks really comfortable and he did look really good today. So fair play to Casey Palmer for that. So guys, that is it. That is my winners and losers of today's game against Luton. So let me know what you think about it in the comments. Do you agree or disagree? So like I say, did you have any losers from our team today? Like for me, I didn't really. Like I think we played well. I don't think anyone had a terrible performance. I think you could point to Morgan Rogers and say he didn't have a phenomenal performance and didn't really look like he was at his best compared to some of the, you know, Estevao and Cole Palmer looking really bright and dangerous, and obviously Danny Welbeck getting his goal. Maybe Morgan Rogers didn't look quite as good as those guys, but I don't think he had like a bad performance. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he looked terrible. So let me know what you think about, were there any actual losers in the game? Because for me, it was all winners and a couple of shout outs. Nice one, guys. I'm going to start wrapping the video up there. I'm sorry that this one isn't quite as graphics heavy as usual. I just wanted to get it out and kind of give my reactions and my winners and losers of the game. No losers. I'm kind of happy with that. Really looking forward to the next game against Brighton. It's a huge game, you know, with Emi Martinez coming in, and does Tapenders get his second chance? Like, there's a lot of questions, but also things are just starting to go really well, aren't they? So, guys, let me know what you think about everything that we've talked about today in the comments. Thanks very much for sticking around until the end of the video if you did, and I will catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace. Bye.